Hey guys, Karen back for Girl Meets World, Season 2, Episode 29, Girl Meets Bay Window. And guys, I could not wait for this episode. Going into it, I heard amazing things, not just from people that saw it, but even like the writers, producers, they all seemed really confident in this episode. They all said this is going to be an amazing episode. They said this is one of their favorites, and it didn't seem like they were just trying to be like, "Oh, check out this episode, it's gonna be amazing." Like, they weren't just trying to overhype it. They were genuinely saying how proud they were of this episode, and in general, I was really looking forward to it. Just the plot in general sounded really interesting, and it seemed like it was gonna be the best episode since Girl Meets New Year, and without a doubt, this was the best episode since Girl Meets New Year. Not only was this episode amazing, it was extremely heartfelt, and honestly, I was on the verge of tears, guys. I'm not gonna lie to you. This episode was incredible. It is everything I love about this show. It is the reason why I love Girl Meets World so much. And if you guys wonder why I continue to watch this show, this episode is why. I mean, I really feel that I'm tied between this Girl Meets Hurricane and then Girl Meets Junior as the best episode of the show because this episode was just so great. And it mainly revolved around one concept. It was a bottle episode for the most part, which I really do give the show credit for doing. I think that's really great that they did that. There were no classroom scenes episode. This might have been the first episode where there wasn't any classroom scenes, but I was happy about that. Basically the main thing about this episode, like Girl Meets New Year, was change, but not so much change in the way that Girl Meets New Year was, because Girl Meets New Year was more about how things are changing because their dynamic with Lucas is changing and they don't know how to feel about that. And it's clear that they're trying not really to bring it up right now. And, Lucas even says in the episode, whatever your thing is going on between us, or whatever's going to happen between us, like he very casually brings that up. That's not really what they're thinking about because they know they need to move ahead. And I'm pretty sure we are going to get something with that in the finale, but not much with that in this episode. You can definitely tell that this episode was meant to be the penultimate episode, which I'm happy about because I heard a lot of people say this. And again, I'm going to say it again, this out of order stuff is not for this show. Other Disney Channel shows, fine. When you have a show that has, that's a coming of age show and every episode kind of ties into the next and they bring up things that happened in the previous episode, it just works better when you don't air the episodes out of order. So please, for season 3, don't air the episodes out of order. But this episode, let's just get to the basic plot because it really was incredible. Riley wants to change the bay window. She wants to change it. She feels that since they're going to high school that they should change it, that, it looks like a little girl's window, and Maya doesn't want her to. She's completely resistant. She thinks the change is not a good idea, but I like that Riley said it's inevitable. And we really saw the mature side of Riley that I've really been loving. You really see that these characters are growing up, and it's honestly kind of sad to watch because, we went into this show, Riley was very immature, Maya was very rebellious, and they're still somewhat like that, but they're definitely growing up, and you definitely see that. And I think this episode showed that very well because we have this whole thing with Maya saying how Riley, she always tells Riley, do whatever you want, but Maya, for the first time, is speaking her opinion and saying, no, I don't think this is a good idea. I don't want to do this. I don't want to change things. And then, of course, Farkle comes into the picture, who, just like the past few episodes, Farkle is there to basically tell them that change is happening and they can't really do anything about it. Farkle, I feel, out of the 4 is the one that's changed the most. I mean, he's changed his hairstyle. He's not after the girls anymore. He has a girlfriend. He, is smart, and he just accepting the fact that change is coming. He really seems out of the 4 like the one that's the most confident that change is happening and they just need to accept it. Riley as well, but Riley, I think, doesn't want things to change in the sense of her, Maya, and Lucas. She doesn't really want that to change. But in terms of this, she does, in fact, want this to change. Lucas, though, I think does want things to change as well, but you can tell that he really didn't want them to change the bay window. He thinks it's not a good idea that they've done this, that they've always shared this spot, and the memories we got in this episode were just so great. I love them because, one, made us remember who these characters were when we were first introduced to them, but also seeing them as young, this could have easily failed because you could have had it be really silly, but no, this really felt like Riley young and Maya young and Farkle young. There's some really great scenes here. It's important to note that they've known Farkle throughout their entire childhood, and I don't know if I ever didn't pick up on that, but I don't know, something about that, I guess I just didn't realize that, but basically, Farkle, Riley was doing bobbing for apples, and Farkle saved her, and that's basically when Farkle told him his name, which I love that Maya laughed and Riley didn't. I mean, that's just such a thing. That's so Riley and Maya, and I love that. Um, but just that scene in general, solidifying their friendship. It shows that they've been friends, and that's something I really do love. I love that we saw that. I love that we saw this scene. Just really great stuff there. And you guys may be thinking, why am I should be upset that Zay wasn't here. Zay hasn't been with them the way that Farkle and Lucas have. So I have absolutely no problem that Zay was not in this episode. Zay would not go to the bay window. Zay did not need to be here, and I don't know, I don't think I'm fine with him not being in this episode. Obviously, the finale, he's going to be there because they're graduating, so. But then we get to the whole Lucas part of it, which this part was really interesting with Lucas, and I really like the way that this scene was done. Because Lucas doesn't have the memories, of course, that Farkle, Riley, and Maya do. He wishes he had these memories, and I love the musical number that Riley and Maya put on where they're singing to Lucas, but it actually becomes, I think, pretty sad, honestly, because then they get in this whole thing of, Lucas isn't young because this is how they remember him. They remember him as how he looks now. They don't see him as a young, they don't see him as young. So when they look back, they're gonna see him as this guy, and they don't really have memories of his childhood. It's sad, but that's just the way it went. And he's just another friend that's, part of this now. And basically, he doesn't really want her to change the bay window either, but I like Riley's explanation that this is a little girl's bedroom and she wants to change it up. She's getting older. She doesn't want to look like a little girl's bedroom, and I think we all really do go through that. I mean, me personally, if you guys remember, when I first did my YouTube videos, I used to have a huge, like, Spider-Man poster, like, right on this wall right here. There was like a Spider-Man poster, if you guys remember that. Then there was like a Hulk and Iron Man one right there, and then there were like some back here. I took all those down. Why? Because I thought they were immature. Not immature, but like I didn't want them. I didn't want them. I wanted to change things, and you guys know, like, that wasn't there 2 years ago. Just like I think we all really do go through change. That's something that we need to go through. But then there was the whole point of why Maya doesn't want to go through this change, which I think is the most interesting aspect of the episode of why she doesn't want to go through this, because there obviously had to be a reason. It's not just that she doesn't want things to change, there's a reason why. We see this flashback, which I love, by the way. I love seeing the flashback of Corey and Topanga when Topanga was going into labor and Corey just forgot her. That's such a Corey thing to do. I love that. I mean, it was great. I love seeing that. And Riley is upset that Augie's gonna be there. Obviously, she's little, so she's upset about that. But also, I love the scene with Farkle where he talks about it every 7 years, you basically reset your life. Yeah, that's kind of true. I mean, I'd say it's more like every 10 years. Like when you're 10, you're very different than when you're 20. Things like that. Definitely towards the end, especially for me, definitely, like, I can look back on my years and be like, oh, I was way different when I was like when I first started the YouTube channel, guys, I was totally different. Like, you guys remember that. And I think they really showed that very well here. And just, Maya, we realize, doesn't want to accept change because of the fact that, when Riley had Augie, Riley then had a little brother, and Maya had absolutely no one. And ever since then, that's how it's been. That's why she doesn't accept change, because nothing's changed for her, so she doesn't need to do it, and that's why she really hasn't dealt with it. So that's why this change is such a big deal, because she's not used to it. She doesn't want things to change. She just wants it to be her and Riley, which I like that Riley's telling her, look, this is not going to change our friendship. We're just changing around the bay window. But for Maya, this is a huge deal, because this is where Maya always goes to, like, sort out their problems. They go to the bay window where they just want to talk. They go to the bay window. This is their spot, and they're always at that bay window. I mean, there's been episodes where Riley has problems. She says, go to the bay window, things like that. We know what that means. We know they're going to have a conversation about it. And Maya really doesn't want that to change. And I really did understand Maya's point there. And I mean, obviously, it makes sense. I mean, her father, she never knew where her father was when she was young. Just that line in general of her saying, I don't know where my father is. It's a really great scene. I like that they didn't, like, ham it up. It felt real. It really did. And then seeing Maya in that same position, it really was great. It shows that Maya hasn't really grown up all that much. She has, but in many ways she hasn't, because she hasn't really had a chance to. She hasn't really had to grow up. She hasn't had to grow up because she hasn't really had any change to deal with. So there really hasn't been anything for her. And that's why Maya, out of the four, I think is the one that hasn't really grown up a lot. And I like that Riley wants her to. She's saying, look, we're going to go to high school. You need to grow up a little bit. Just a really great scene. And Riley didn't say, obviously, that she needs to grow up, but she did say she needs to accept change. And I really did like seeing that. But then, of course, we get the best scenes in this episode, which I know I'm not talking about this episode for a lot, but there wasn't a whole lot to talk about in this episode. But then we get the great scenes with seeing how Riley and Maya met, which just it's great. I love the way that Riley thought that Maya was an intruder, a stranger, and then they just bonded right away. Just it's so Riley and Maya. I love it. I mean, these scenes, they could have been so cheesy and they could have been so stupid. And any other Disney Channel show, these would have been ridiculous. They would have done the most, they would have hammed it up. They would have made it cheesy as possible. And here it just felt so real. It felt like this is how these two met. It felt like if these two were to be seven, that is how Riley and Maya would be. And it really did make sense to me. I really liked the way that was done. I loved those scenes between them. And I gotta say, I started tearing up, but it wasn't there where I teared up. I teared up at the flash forward, where Riley and Maya are imagining themselves 7 years from now when they're like 20, and basically Maya is getting a job at Soho. I believe she says to become an artist, which, yeah, definitely, I think that's the direction that Maya's going. She definitely is going to become an artist. And Riley, I don't remember what she's doing, but basically, just the scene of them saying that they'll always have each other. I mean, I was on the verge of tears. I'm not going to lie, guys. I mean, things like that are very hard, and just seeing them with their younger selves and showing them this is who they're going to be and that they need to accept change is just such a great scene. I just loved it all. And it again, the adult Riley and Maya are still Riley and Maya. They understood that. Yes, these characters have grown up, but they're still the same person. I mean, Riley's always going to be quirky. She's always going to have those weird, mannerisms that she has. That's something that Riley's always going to have. That's something that, she just, we know the episode Girl Meets Riley Town. That's who she is. She's not going to change it. And maybe she will tone down at some point, but she'll always have that quirky side to her, and Maya will always have that tough, edgy side to her, and that's just something that they're not going to change. And I think they showed that very well here, because again, they could have easily made this just be they're grown up and they're completely different, but no, I mean, these are two best friends that they're going to stay the same. They're not going to change, and they definitely are growing up. There's a difference between growing up and change. Growing up is, simply just maturity. You grow up over time, you realize things you thought were a big deal aren't a big deal, and just you grow up. Change is more harder, honestly, because change is like, I think we as individuals, we don't want to accept change. And this episode very much reminded me of the episode Changes from season 5. Things Change, season 5, the last episode before ironically, the last episode before Corey and the gang graduate to go to college, which is very similar to this, except they're going to high school, which isn't as radical as a change, but in many ways it is, because you really do find yourself in high school and things really do change in high school. Certainly things change from middle school to high school for me. I will definitely tell you guys that right now. But the thing about that episode is that episode 2 is about Corey not wanting to accept change and wanting to just keep things the way they are. And I think this episode very much did that, even better, because that episode was great. I do love that episode, but this episode did it even better because it just showed the friendship that these two have. No matter what happens, they're going to have each other. I love seeing that. And then the ending of the episode where you see all three, then they all go into the bay window because they've now had these memories. Maya's ready to accept change, and she basically tells Riley whatever she wants. And I like that Riley took one last glimpse of the old bay window, just remembering, just to take a second in and being like, okay, this is me getting rid of, it's not necessarily getting rid of who she is, but it's moving on. I'm going to change the bay window, and this is the last time I'll see it this way. Just a really great scene. I really like the way that that was handled. Definitely really good stuff. Also, I like that Corey had like a brief message in there, but he basically had them do this all on their own. He didn't really need them in there. And I like the scene where he said, "This is my day off." I thought that was really funny. And I like that they didn't necessarily want them to change the bay window. They didn't really think it was the best idea for them to do that. They need to keep things the way they are. But they didn't change it too much. They just like put a black curtain over it and things like that. So it's not too different. So I like they didn't change it too much, because I think even, people watching the show, it wouldn't feel like the same. I like that they didn't change the bay window completely. They just changed it a little bit, just grew it up a little bit, made it look less like a little girl's room, and more like a mature teenage girl's room. And I loved seeing that. The way that scene was done was great. Them just sitting there looking at the window, perfect way in the episode, and I just loved it. This episode was just perfect, really. It has everything I love about the show. It had the deeper meanings, it had the message about change, and that's really been what season 2 is all about. It's all about these characters changing. I mean, think of everything these characters have gone through. Riley's gone through so many changes this season, especially, Farkle has, all these characters have gone through so many changes, and I can't wait for the finale. I really can't. Now, the thing that sucks, we have to wait till March 11th for the finale. But I think this was a good episode to just be like, okay, I can wait till March 11th. It's fine. This episode was great enough that I can be like, fine, March 11th, I can wait. It is going to be an hour finale, which I am very happy about. I was really worried that it was going to be half an hour, but no, it is going to be an hour. I think it's going to be two separate episodes, obviously, but it is going to be 1 hour long, and I'm definitely looking forward to that. I know it's going to be an amazing send off. I can't wait to see what happens with these characters as they graduate because, again, I want to see them graduate. I want to see them move on. It's going to be sad, definitely. I definitely think it's going to be bittersweet. Like I said, I started to shed tears, really. During that scene, seeing them grown up, I really did start to shed tears because it's just this bond that I think we've just connected to. And I think we all have that bond that, like, it's hard to move on from. And I think we all really do have that. Now, I personally, I don't really have a bond like Riley and Maya, but I've watched them on this show, and you just feel it. I felt this genuine, you feel like you get connected to characters. That's some about TV shows, is that you get connected to characters, and I didn't realize I was connected to Riley Maya as I am, but I've told you guys this, when Girl Meets World is great, it's fucking great, and this is a great example of that. This was an amazing episode, one of the best episodes I think they've ever done. It had the heart that I loved, it had the comedy that I loved. It was kind of light on jokes, I definitely will say that. It wasn't necessarily light on jokes, but it was definitely more of an emotional episode, which I definitely really loved. The Farkle stuff was great. Lucas wasn't even in there for that long, which I was fine with. Like I said, Zay not being there, perfectly fine with that. And thank God Charlie wasn't there. I mean, Charlie is going to be there in the graduation episode, but come on. I've had enough of Charlie. I don't need to see him again. Before we get to the finale, though, I do want to talk a little bit about this season overall, because I have heard people say they're done with this season. I've never been done with the season. It's just I do think that there were a lot of episodes that they didn't need to air. They could have just left them unaired. Like last week's episode, Girl Meets Communism. That did not need to air. I don't know why they aired that episode. It's not going to change anything. It didn't really do anything for the show. I don't know why they need to air it. A lot of these episodes, they could have just been like, okay, well, just make them a bonus feature on the DVD. I would have been fine with that. Do that. I'm perfectly fine with that. Just make them bonus features on the DVD or just put them on Netflix or something. You don't need to release every single episode. There are reasons why there are lost episodes. There are reasons why things get shelved, and I realized a lot of these episodes were shelved, but there were reasons why they were shelved. They did not really need to be here. But overall, guys, I love this episode. I am so happy that this episode finally aired because after a few episodes of being a bit like, we haven't really been, we've been, they've been airing these episodes and they haven't really gone in order. And like I said, we didn't really see much of the Maya Lucas Riley conflict, but that's because Maya and Riley are still gonna be friends. But I do think that things are gonna change between Maya, Riley, and Lucas, and this is Maya realizing that she does want to accept change. And I think one of the big steps to accepting change is her realizing how does she feel about Lucas, because I don't think she does. I mean, in this episode, she was back to calling him Huckleberry, and I know some people will be like, "Oh, that's regressing her character," but no, that's how Maya feels around Lucas. That's where she feels happy. That's where she feels in her comfort zone. She doesn't want to, treat him like a boyfriend because that might be how she sees him, but that's not how she's acted around him. And for her, she just doesn't want to change. And I think now she does want to, and I think that really does play into her, trying to figure out her feelings for Lucas and Riley figuring it out as well. Definitely, I think we're going to touch upon that. But I can't wait to see what happens when they all graduate. That definitely is going to be very interesting. I can't wait for the finale in general. Let me know what you guys thought of this amazing episode. I absolutely love this episode. One of the best episodes of the entire show, definitely. And yes, I have more to say about Girl Meets New Year, but there was just more that happened in this episode. This episode was definitely more of a sentimental episode, and I definitely really love that. And I will see you guys in my next video, which will most likely be for the Vampire Diaries or the originals. I don't know which one it'll be for, but I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.